It's been a tradition in the United States for the last few decades for outgoing presidential administrations to hand out a few what's called Presidential Medals of Freedom awards. Well, those typically you would think would go to good, solid folks, red-blooded American, hard work ethic, championing the rule of law, American freedoms and liberties, entrepreneurship, all that good stuff. And there have been some very deserving people who have gotten these types of awards over the years. But then we get some folks out there that you really have to scratch your head at and wonder, what in the hell is going on? Yeah, namely when you have folks like Hillary Clinton and George Soros. Now, Hillary Clinton, you could make some type of bizarre argument saying that, well, she was walked into a position as a United States senator from the state of New York, where they never lived up until they got out of the White House. Or you could say that she was a former Secretary of State that was responsible for wonderful things like Benghazi. Yeah. But George Soros is a horse of a different color. George Soros is a man that is notorious for having worked against the interests of freedom, not just in America, but all around the world. Somebody who has spent scores of his billions of personal wealth to manipulate governments and elections all around the globe. And, well, isn't it amazing how Joe Biden is going to hand him one of these medals? Renegade Online.
Just to talk about the George Soros, the Presidential Medals of Freedom. Because we've talked a lot tonight about, as we often do, the influences of the American left, especially with politics, social issues, the LGBTQ movement. We're talking about stories earlier, how seemingly out of nowhere in the last few years, the explosion of Hollywood diving into not just gay, lesbian stories in programming, but all of a sudden the transgender push. I mean, out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden this was normalized at every Hollywood studio, even down to the point where it got into children's programming. The normalization and I know this is going to seem for people out there listening like, what does one have to do with the other? Follow us on this. The normalization of criminal behavior. Hey, we're going to let a bunch of people go ahead and loot and rob violently retail stores all across America.
Summer of love.
Yeah, the summer of love. Racial justice, racial equity. Hey, you know what? Hey, look, if you want to go in and rob $1,000 from an Ulta beauty store in San Francisco or in downtown Austin or anywhere else, basically nobody's going to show up and do anything. You want to push gender ideology, gender dysphoria, all kind of stuff into kids through entertainment and all this. Hollywood's going to back you up. There's going to be lots of financial support, media support, all of that stuff out there. There's been one guy. There's been a lot of guys, but there's been one big guy that's been out there for years dumping a lot of money into this. Well, this week, of course, you got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. George Soros. It seems like the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award has just become a joke. And I'm not going to sit here. I want to make this very clear. There are some people that I think over the years have legitimately deserved it for what it is intended to be. But it's also become a freaking welfare check handout for any political ally. And it seems especially more so for the left. I could be wrong, but it's getting laughable, some of these awards that are getting handed out. But
yeah, it's
George
a participation
Soros
trophy for the degeneracy of the left. That's what it feels like.
That's exactly it. But yeah, George Soros gets this award along with Hillary Clinton, which makes it even funnier. And speaking of, since you just came in with Star Wars, and this is one of the reasons, let's start with Hillary first. I've made this comment on YouTube more than a couple of times, and I stand by it fully. People out there that have followed me long enough, and I know X-Wing, you probably know what I'm about to say, and you've probably heard me say it before. Hillary Clinton is basically the Kathleen Kennedy of politics, or Kathleen Kennedy is the Hillary Clinton of Hollywood. People are like, oh, you hate women. You don't think women. Nope. There's plenty of very talented, very capable, outstanding women out there who have truly trailblazed on their own, truly have made themselves what they are. They're truly self-made people. Hillary Clinton and Kathleen Kennedy are not amongst them. Hillary Clinton, she basically started her political career by, Kamala Harris. Stole the thunder. Hillary Clinton started her political career by hitching her wagon to Bill, who she recognized that he was going somewhere. He's got the charisma. He's going to get into politics. Hillary never accomplished much of anything on her own. Even Mike earlier tonight made the comment when the name came up about Benghazi, right? Hillary Clinton got elected to the Senate in the state of New York by virtue of the fact that she and Bill had just left the White House and then moved to New York. Who else were they going to hand it to? Because in New York, you basically get appointed in that sense of the word. Yeah, they have elections, but they're largely formalities. It's whoever the Democrat Party awards the nomination to, that's who's going to win. It was Hillary Clinton. What did she accomplish in the Senate? Really nothing. She then got appointed as Secretary of State, which was part of the deal with Barack Obama, who trucked her over in 2008, along with Bernie Sanders and everything else. What did she accomplish as Secretary of State of any value? Really nothing. She got to where she was by virtue of the fact that she hitched her wagon to a bunch of guys that were already there, and then by virtue of association, made her way up the ladder. And I'm not saying that there haven't been guys in politics that haven't done this. There have been tons of guys that have done this, hitching their wagon to other guys that are career politicians that have never held a real job in their entire freaking life. Kathleen Kennedy, same thing. Got to where she was by virtue of the fact that she was hanging around with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Robert Zemeckis and Frank Marshall, who she later married, and Richard Donner and everybody else, the creative geniuses that made the movies that were huge as they were, who she happened to be hanging around in an administrative capacity as an executive producer. Kathleen Kennedy goes off on her own. We get Disney Star Wars. That's it. Proof's right there. Kathleen Kennedy left her own devices. We get Disney Star Wars, which has been an abject failure. And then we have George Soros, who has been arguably the architect, and that's not him in the picture. I just want to make that clear. George Soros, who has been the architect of so much wrong in America. Giving George Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom is like handing Hitler Jew of the Year. It really is. Let's be honest. There is nobody who is more opposed to freedom than George Soros. There is nobody more opposed to the American Constitution and the American way of life than George Soros. George Soros has funded everything that is basically wrong with America today. George Soros has funded many of these district attorneys, like the one that we have here in New Orleans, who is basically put into office as a DEI placement to make sure that racial equity justice is implemented as opposed to legitimate justice. And it's one of the reasons that places like New Orleans and Detroit and many places in California and everywhere else out there have the crime problems that they have, because they catch a criminal who does bad stuff. The criminal is either not prosecuted or they're sent out of prison 6 months into a sentence because it's overcrowded and Black Lives Matter, whatever. George Soros has done more damage to this country than almost anybody else in politics in the last 20 years.
He did do one thing right, and I think this is why he got the medal, believe it or not. I have the answer as to why George Soros won the Medal of Freedom.
I would love to hear this. Please, expert, enlighten us.
This is true. I think you could fact check me on this, but you're aware of Hot Ones, right?
Hot Ones.
Hot Ones is the show where they bring in celebrities and they have them eat the really hot wings and they do an interview. Yeah, Hot Ones. I think it was the most successful show underneath the Joe Rogan podcast, I think, in terms of like viewership brought in. Maybe Mr. Beast is in there. I don't know. Well, First We Feast is the company that runs Hot Ones. First We Feast was owned by BuzzFeed. And recently, BuzzFeed sold First We Feast in majority to the Soros Fund. So BuzzFeed, as useless as it was, still had one last thing on its plate, and it was Hot Ones, First We Feast. The Soros Fund bought it, effectively now making BuzzFeed more useless than it already was and killing it. And so George Soros might have finally killed BuzzFeed, therefore getting him the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Well, you have a point there. And there's a comment that just came in, and I'm so glad it did, from Staccato, because this is one of the things I was specifically going to address. Social media erupted in anger Saturday morning, yesterday, with news that President Joe Biden will award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and left-wing billionaire George Soros. Now, again, I want everybody to think for a moment what we've had to listen to since Trump got elected. Is that billionaires are running this country. Billionaires got Trump in office. Trump and his billionaire friends. Well, the billionaire that has been running this country's social and political machine, quite frankly, since 2008 when Barack Obama got elected, is George Soros. And you can throw in there Bill Gates and a few others like Mark Cuban and everybody else. Remember, we're supposed to ignore the billionaires on the left and only pay attention to what? Elon Musk on the right, whatever, or at least they perceive as the right. The award, the nation's highest civilian honor, is given to individuals who have made exemplary contributions to prosperity, values, or security of the United States. I would love to know what either Hillary or Soros fits into that regard. World peace or other significant societal or public or private endeavors, the White House said in a statement. It must be those latter criteria. It must be the significant societal or public endeavors that they're referring to, specifically social endeavors like DEI, because that's the only thing that this crap fits into. Tesla founder Elon Musk led the furious outcry, labeling the decision to award George Soros the honor as, quote, a travesty. Elon Musk shared a video clip of himself on Joe Rogan's podcast where he said that he believed that George Soros, quote, fundamentally hates humanity.
I remember that.
This is another area that I fully agree with Elon Musk on. I think George Soros, much like some of the famous Germans that we mentioned shortly ago, have a fundamental hatred of humanity. People like George Soros look down on American society. They look down on Western society as problems that need to be put under his belt. Okay? And George Soros is not putting folks of color into power because he likes them. He doesn't. Hint, hint. He's putting them into power to try to engineer the undermining of Western culture.
Right.
That's what it's there for. If people out there in the audience feel like they don't like what China does, well, then you shouldn't like George Soros either.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't want Stalin or Vladimir Lenin in charge of public culture in America, then you shouldn't want George Soros in charge of it either. Elon Musk continued by saying he's doing things that erode the fabric of civilization. You know, getting district attorneys elected who refuse to prosecute crime. Yes, like New Orleans, my hometown, and everywhere else. Online commentator Blake Haben wrote, "What a joke. These people have done the exact opposite of what the award is intended for." While Natalie Danlishan wrote that the news could be a Babylon Bee story, given how unbelievable it is. Seriously, two of the worst people on earth. Clinton, the White House said, made, quote, history many times over decades in public service. And the first female senator from New York and the first lady to hold elected office. It always comes down to these silly things. Like
the first.
Yes. Okay. Your accomplishment was what? The first female senator from New York. The first female secretary of state. So? What did you actually do? What did you accomplish? What came out of that? Nothing of any value to America. Nothing. Not to say that a woman couldn't, but in this case, this woman simply didn't. And so to award her or anybody based on this as being like some kind of accomplishment, but that's what they're all in love with now, right? That's DEI. Hillary Clinton was one of the first DEI appointments, to be quite honest. And she's not black, so there you have it. So, I mean, this is the issue here, is that we're handing these things out for people that are literally destroying. And look, let's be honest. X-Wing, do you think that honestly, that Joe Biden is much aware of anything going on here?
So far as he knew, he was handing a Medal of Honor to a Marine that stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima. No, I don't think he knows what's going on. And he literally pinned the Medal of Freedom on the Ra's al Ghul, the Bane of Arkham City or Gotham, and just said, "Here you go." You know what I mean? The Auswärter, the chosen one, Soros, wants to watch the world burn. This is the type of person who winds up in power and believes that they're so right that nobody else is allowed to make their own decisions. And so you will take it and you will like it, and we will show you how wrong you are. As an American, a true red-blooded American, I don't like that. I don't think you should either. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on right now with this, and I think we're just gonna have to suffer through it for the next 15 days or whatever, and it's going to continue after that. But I want to bring this up because I did see this out there as it pertains to some of this. Staccato for $50. Thank you for contributing to the Staccato Fund, as he named it. The goal of these awards, the Presidential Medals of Freedom, was to infuriate conservatives. Don't feed the trolls, as they say. I agree. I totally agree. Now, that being said, Staccato, is that I think that there is value here, especially now with Trump coming in 15 days from now. And this was my point. And Staccato, if you disagree with me, that's cool. But I want to throw this at you as just a bit to think about. I'm not enraged over the fact that this was given to Soros. It's fun to laugh at, and we're going to make comments on it. Does it surprise me from that standpoint? Not really. Let's be honest. But what it does provide, and the reason why I want to just pop people in the face with this, is because it gives us an opportunity, a golden opportunity to discuss who this man is, because there's still a lot of people out there that don't know. And everybody needs to know who he is.
I think there's a fine line between feeding the trolls and allowing people to operate unchecked and not talking about it. And, you have to tread that line.
I think that's it. And I look, Staccato, I totally agree with you. I don't like to feed into the trolls out there. And yes, I think to some degree or another that this is trolling. And when I say to some degree or another in terms of the Soros Award, I want to be very specific. I think that, quite honestly, that a lot of the people that are in that White House, the Gen Z staffers and whatnot, the millennials,
the luggage stealers,
the garbage that's in there running the White House right now, whose brains are little better than a pile of cold mush. A lot of them are probably just absolutely beside themselves, skipping and jumping and singing to give this award to George Soros. I think for a lot of them, Staccato, that I don't know if this is necessarily trolling for them. This is something that they are truly celebrating over there. So, okay, they want to celebrate it, or if they want to troll, sweet. Let's actually have a genuine conversation about who this piece of crap is. Let's talk about what he is in the context, and this is what's important, of everything that we have been talking about here on the Renegade Nation for 4 years. The DEI, the stupidity at Disney, the LGBTQ brooming that goes on from places like Disney with kids and putting certain things in children's content and programming. This is all by and large, not exclusively, obviously, not solely, but a guy like George Soros has played an enormous hand in pushing all of this dog shite into American culture. And it's been done deliberately to try to destroy American culture, to destroy the American family, to destroy men, to destroy women, to destroy masculinity, to destroy femininity. There's nothing wrong with these differences. You've got guys like George Soros out there that spend a lot of money that is laundered and pumped through foundations out there, kind of like, Biden money coming in through Ukraine. This is how it gets in there. This is how the society works nowadays. And what they're very fearful of now is that a guy like Trump, especially after learning his lesson, so we hope the first time around from 2016 to 2020, that he's not going to make the same mistake again. And all these people that he may have trusted the first time and he left them in office or left them in their job posts ain't going to have jobs anymore in 2-3 weeks. They've got to get everything they can done now.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.